What's up guys, Saf here on SuperSaf TV and welcome to another SuperSaf style camera comparison, this time between the iPhone XS Max and the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. So in the usual format, we'll be looking at all aspects of the cameras, front, rear facing, videos, images, and also look out for the audio icon in the corner of the screen, and that will indicate to you which device the audio is coming from. I'll be switching between these two throughout this video to give you guys a better idea of the differences in audio as well. This time we've got stereo recording for the first time on the iPhone, so that'll be interesting to see as well. So we're currently outdoors, front facing camera. We're going to be testing out the stabilization, so I'm just walking, and now let's go ahead and run. Okay, just checking out dynamic range as well. So got lots of light coming here from the background just to see how that balances on my face. Let me know what you guys think. Now we've switched to the rear facing cameras. We are filming at 4K 30 frames a second. Just having a bit of a look around here. You can see dynamic range as well. Now we're just gonna walk and test out the stabilization. Now let's run. Clouds. Ooh, there's a squirrel there. Okay, let's test out the 2x optical zoom, which both devices have. See that squirrel? Perfect way to test out the optical zoom as well. Now 4K 60 frames a second. Both devices are capable of this. Let's test out the stabilization at 4K 60. Walking. Now let's run. Now just testing out the autofocus on the XS Max. Very, very fast. Same autofocus test on the Note 9. Again, super fast. Right, so that was the video. Now before we move on to images, just a quick look at what we're working with here. For the front-facing cameras, the Note 9 does have more megapixels and it also has a wider aperture, which should help in low light. And for the rear-facing cameras, we have dual 12 megapixel cameras on both devices. The secondary camera is going to give you 2x optical zoom. And the Note 9 does have a variable aperture for the primary camera. It's going to switch between f1.5 and f2.4 depending on the light in your scene. The iPhone XS Max has a fixed aperture on both lenses. Now all the images that you see have been shot on automatic. I haven't tweaked any settings, and that's to keep things as fair as possible. And finally, a quick thanks to our sponsor for this video, dbrand Skins. It's a great way to customize the look of your Samsung Galaxy Note 9 or your iPhone XS Max or another device. I'm really digging their new Matrix skins. I'm going to be leaving a link to dbrand in the description below if you want to check them out. Right, so starting off with some selfies. The first thing you'll notice is that the Note 9 does have a slightly wider field of view, so this is going to be good for your group selfies. But I do overall prefer the image on the XS Max, and that is because it has better dynamic range. If you look towards the background, a lot of those details have been blown out on the Note 9 image, whereas these have been maintained better on the XS Max. Moving on to another selfie, things are the same once again. The Note 9 wider, but the XS Max does have better dynamic range, which I do prefer overall. Now both devices do have a portrait mode from the front-facing camera. This is where it's going to try to blur the background. In terms of edge detection, I think both are doing around about the same. They're not doing amazing, but they're doing okay overall. You can see that things have been blurred out towards my hair. But dynamic range once again is better on the XS Max, which I do prefer. And you can also edit the blur on the XS Max after you've taken the shot. This is something you can't do from the front-facing camera of the Note 9. And the Note 9 only takes one image, so if the blur doesn't work out well, then you're stuck with that image. It doesn't even take a normal image. This is something that I fed back in my initial review of the S9 Plus as well as the Note 9, and it's still something that is an issue in my opinion. Testing out another portrait mode selfie here, the iPhone doing better overall, I'd say, because of the dynamic range. In terms of edge detection, I think both are doing around about the same. Now things are quite different when we move on to low light situations, and that is because we have a much wider aperture on the Note 9. This really helps giving you a much brighter image and better maintain the colors as well. The iPhone image looks very dark in comparison, and even if we do use the front-facing flash, once again we've got a much brighter image on the Note 9 with better detail compared to that of the iPhone. Now let's move outdoors. So starting off with the macro shots, I think both are doing a good job here. I prefer the colors better on the iPhone, but we do have a sharper image on the Note 9. If we do go in 200%, you can see that sharpness on the Note 9, but the colors definitely more balanced on the iPhone, so I'd call this one a bit of a draw. Now moving on to an outdoor wide shots, I think both are doing a really good job. We've got tricky dynamic range. The iPhone seems to have favored the background, so you've got more detail on the clouds, but the Note 9 seems to have favored the foreground. So things are a little bit brighter in the foreground of the Note 9 picture, so I think I'd call this one a draw as well. Moving on, another shot with tricky dynamic range. Here I would have to give the edge to the Note 9, and that is because we've got a brighter foreground, but it still maintained the details in the clouds in the background. Whereas the iPhone has done a good job overall, but I just think that there are less details in those shadows in the foreground compared to the Note 9. Now both devices do have optical zoom, so if we use that in this situation, you can see that we can get in much closer. They both do a very, very good job. Now I really wanted to test out dynamic range further, just so I could pick a winner, but this was not the case because in this situation, I prefer the iPhone image because it has more details in the shadows, whereas the Note 9 has lost some details in the shadows in comparison. So I think overall for dynamic range, I would have to give it a draw. Now let's move on to the portrait mode from both devices. I think both are doing a really good job overall, but the colors are better on the iPhone in my opinion. And the edge detection also seems slightly better on the iPhone. If you look towards my head, there's a slight defect on the Note 9. But generally speaking, both are doing a good job. I do prefer the iPhone image overall, however. Now I wanted to test out dynamic range using the portrait mode, so went in direct sunlight. And here, the iPhone is definitely doing a much better job. The highlights on my face have been completely blown out on the Note 9. This is something that I did feedback once again in my review of the Note 9 as well as the S9 Plus. When you're using live focus, the portrait mode on the Note 9, then it doesn't seem to have HDR. It just seems to take a flat image. And if you are in a situation where there is a lot of bright light, then you are going to get areas which will be quite a bit overexposed. Now in terms of edge detection, the iPhone does have a slight defect near my hair where the window meets. So I think overall in terms of edge detection, I'd have to give it a draw between these two. But when we're talking about dynamic range and colors, then the iPhone is better, and that would be my pick for portrait mode. Now both devices do allow you to adjust the blur after the fact, so that's something we didn't have previously on iPhones. We do have it now, and that's definitely nice to have. Now let's move on to low light. So we've got a similar situation as what we had with the front-facing cameras. The Note 9 has a brighter image with a better detail, and that is thanks to that wider aperture. If you go in 200%, you can see that the text here on the building is sharper on the Note 9 compared to the iPhone. And another low light shots outdoors, you can see here once again, the colors seem to be better maintained on the Note 9. And if you go in 200%, you can see that text is also sharper on the Note 9 compared to the iPhone. And finally, just to push things to the extreme, indoors in low light, the Note 9 doing a much better job here. You can see the text on this little toy, whereas that has been completely lost on the iPhone, and this is definitely noticeable when we go in 200%. So there we have it, guys. That is the SuperSaf style camera comparison between the iPhone XS Max and the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. Things have never been closer. I think these two have some of the best cameras out there in the market right now. We've got some big improvements for the front-facing camera on the iPhone XS Max, especially when it comes to dynamic range. It would definitely have to get the win here. The XS Max also has a better portrait mode, which you can edit after the fact. This is something you can't do on the Note 9. The Note 9, however, does have a slightly wider field of view, so that might be beneficial to you. When it comes to video from the front-facing camera, we now have stabilization from the XS Max. This is something we didn't have previously. Now, both of these do crop in to achieve that stabilization, so that is something to bear in mind. I did prefer the stabilization a little bit better on the Note 9, I would say. It seemed to be a little bit sharper, whereas things did start to get a little bit blurry on the iPhone, but I preferred the colors overall on the iPhone compared to the Note 9. Now for images from the rear-facing camera in good light, I would have to give it a draw, both doing a very good job overall. Dynamic range sometimes was better on the Note, sometimes better on the iPhone. And you also have the telephoto cameras, which both also do a very, very good job. For video, however, the iPhone did have better dynamic range clearly, but the Note 9 did seem to be a tad sharper. Stabilization was also really good on both devices, but 4K 60 frames a second stabilization wasn't good on either. And you don't get that same dynamic range at 4K 60 as you do at 4K 30 on the iPhone. When it comes to slow motion, the Note 9 gets the edge, and that is because you have an additional option of 720p at up to 960 frames a second. This is something that you don't have on the iPhone. Autofocus, I think, was a bit of a draw. Both are very, very fast. Now, when it comes to low light, the Note 9 definitely gets the win, and that is thanks to that super wide f1.5 aperture. Colors were better maintained, images were sharper with less noise. But when it comes to the portrait mode, the iPhone was the winner in my opinion. You've got much better dynamic range compared to the Note 9. Edge detection was a bit of a draw, however. And finally, talking about audio, this is the first year that an iPhone has got stereo audio recording. This is something that I've been ranting about for many, many years. And this time I would have to call it a draw. Both sounded really, really good. You had nice rich audio on both devices. You can go back and have a listen if you'd like to. That's what I think anyway. What do you guys think? Definitely drop me a comment below and let me know. And let me know in the comments as well which SuperSaf style camera comparison you'd like to see next here on the channel. If you'd like to see lots of different images from lots of different devices, then definitely give me a follow on Instagram. I'm at SuperSaf. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then do hit that thumbs up button for me. And if you haven't already, then be sure to subscribe and switch on notifications. We've got lots more SuperSaf style content coming up on here. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time.